All right, grown-ups, it's just our time. I love the babies, but to help you, I gotta speak my mind. This segment's here to help you grow with book reviews, lessons, and things you'll be glad to know. If your little one's restless or looking to play, send them to my other playlist. The read-alouds there will brighten their day.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Behind the Book, where honest reviews spark deeper, more meaningful reading.
Yay! I'm Miss Erica, the teacher lady.
You're a fairy godparent when it comes to sharing joyful stories and growing young minds. This week, we're talking about how to celebrate Black history and Black culture and slavery and racism. And most importantly, why they are not the same thing, okay? Now, if you need more insight on how to go about talking about the subject with your child, check out our Teacher Lady Speaks episode at the end of the week. That'll be on Friday. But today, we're going to do a behind the book review on What Would the World Be Without Black People? Written and illustrated by me, Erica M. Burrell. Hey, y'all. If you have not already done so, make sure you go check out the Read Out Loud first, so that you understand what it is I'm referencing when we go deeper into this book review. Now, I'm going to try my best to be as unbiased, impartial as possible. But I do want to preface this by saying it is my story, it's my book, and of course, I'm a fan. But I will get into the same things that I do for any other book review, okay? With all the integrity and reflection in the world. And because it's been 5 years at this point, I feel like I got a good amount of insight, all right? So in this episode, we'll be sharing my glows, the things that I loved, my grows, what I would have done a little bit differently, who this book is for, how to utilize it to have a more meaningful conversation with your students or with your children, and so much more. All in this episode of Behind the Book, where we go past the pages to get to the heart of the story. You ready? Let's grow. So this is the story of Timothy. And Timothy gets mad at a friend. And as a result of the conflict with that one friend, he walks into class and he starts spilling out racism, okay? He says some hurtful comments about Black people. And then as a result of that, the teacher says, well, you're going to get your wish and you're going to experience a world with no Black people. And so there is this magical fairy that comes in, and as he goes through the pages, things in his life are disappearing because they were created by Black people. So that is the summary of the story. You have a kid who walks into class mad at another student. As a result of that anger, he decides to go racist and generalize an entire group of people. In his wish coming true, a fairy comes along to ensure that he cannot interact with anything created by Black people, because you cannot have our culture without having us. You cannot have our inventions without having us, okay? So it is a fun, colorful way to bring home the message that we all have added value in this world, and to watch your mouth. That's really the point. I should have just said that. The summary is watch your mouth, okay? The idea of the take-home message for this story is Black people have contributed to this world. That it is impossible to go through your day without touching or interacting or dealing with something pertaining to Blackness, okay? The message is the beauty that we have contributed. Now, let me give you the why, which I can't do for most books because I'm not the author of those books. But for this one, the why really comes down to the fact that Black people are often painted in such a negative light. We have so many negative stereotypes against us. Danger, thugs, and blah, 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 blah. I mean, people say all sorts of things. And our negative stereotypes tend to overpower all of the beauty that we have and all of the beauty that we've contributed. So much so that we cannot celebrate Black history without bringing up slavery, without bringing up Black people being slaves, right? Which, message, extra tip, we were not slaves, we were enslaved, we were humans. So words do matter. Now, back to the message. One of the take-home messages is Black people have contributed significantly to this country, to this world. Okay, that's one take-home message. Do I think that that was clearly communicated? I do. Why? Because there's a picture of a little kid who can't even go to the mall without some stuff disappearing, right? The second take-home message is that we need to learn to see people as individuals. This kid came out from arguing with a child over a swing and decided to classify everybody as being useless, worthless, as wanting to be without. Every Black person got put into a group. And the issue is, and this happens often, Timothy responds to Mrs. Burrell's inquiry of like, hey, well, do you hate me because I'm Black too? And he's like, well, not you, you're the exception. And we see that all the time. Being a person who is highly educated, being a person who is in educational leadership, being a person who is in sororities and has all sorts of high-level degrees and certificates, I am often seen as the exception. I will be in spaces where I am the exception. And that is unfair. Black excellence, Black beauty, all of these things come in a multitude of ways. And that was another message in this story. Do I think it was clearly communicated? I think so. And talking to my students and opening it up for discussion and conversation, I do believe that that message was taken home. Okay. The third message, a lot of messages, is really about feelings and emotions. So one of the things that my husband always points out, the page that hit him the most in the story, was when Timothy went to go interact with his friends and they were no longer there because they were Black. And so it's past inventions, it's past creations, it's past artistic ability. It really comes down to the fact that you don't know every Black person, that you're not thinking about the Black people that you do like. Similarly, the message in my other book, which is the follow-up, What Would the World Be Without Latinos? There is a page in there that talks about Camarena, the inventor who made color television. And I find it so fascinating, not in a good way, but kind of like appalling, that the color television, which was invented by this Latino man, is often utilized as a tool to talk down on Latino people. There are a lot of contradictions in this country, and I feel like this book is a good way and a very child-friendly way to start to show that. Regarding age group, which I get this question all the time, this book, if you have a 5-year-old who is not neurodivergent, who is neurotypical, and who is pretty consistent with literature, you will be able to hold a conversation with them about this story 5 and up. Now, with that said, I became an illustrator to be able to do this. It was important to me that the images match the words because I do have neurodivergent students, because I do have nonverbal students, because we communicate in all different types of ways, because I have English language learners. And so really thinking about the different types of students that I serve and the different types of people I want to understand the story. The story is told by way of both words and images. Okay. So what that means is if you have a child who can recognize images, they'll be able to get the gist of the story. So you can start with a 4-year-old. If you want to have more of a conversation, just like a very general conversation, I would go 5. And then I've literally had professors purchase my books in order to teach their students how to go about education and how to go about addressing some of these issues within the classroom. So you can go as young as 4 or younger, and you can go all the way up. It's completely up to you. But the message should be clear, and that is that we have contributed, and you cannot have our culture, our inventions, our food, our ideologies, our research, and our medicine, and all of these other things without having us. You're going to have to see us, okay? Who should add this to their library? The first is, if you don't have books that celebrate Blackness, I'm talking past Black characters. When we talk about diversity, it's, do you have books that feature Native American students, Latino students, children in a wheelchair, girls? Do you have books that have albino children? That's what we talk about when we say diversity. Diversity is a very general word, but more specifically, if I can't walk into your home and your child's library, assuming they have one, and tell them to pull me out 5 books on Black history that celebrate Black history, because there's a difference between American history and what was done to us, and our history, which is how we've taken that and made something beautiful. Do you have 5 books that celebrate Blackness? Do you have 5 books that highlight joy? Do you have 5 books that have a Black character, but it's specific on their identity and who they are and how magical that is? If you do not, this book should be added. This is a staple book. When I say a staple book, I mean you start with one book and then you can form others around it. This is a staple book. This book introduces the idea of racism with Timothy coming into the classroom, and it also hits on actual facts that looked up by the U.S. Patent Office, okay? Factual, research-based information. And so if your bookshelf does not have Black stories that celebrate Black culture, add this book to your library. That's the first type. The second is, if you have a Black child, you need to work overtime to ensure that they know who they are, ensure that they know what their ancestors have done and contributed. And if you don't use the word ancestors, what the people have come before them have done in order to make their life better. I need you intentionally, and I am getting emotional, because our Black students' spirits are breaking. They're dwindling. Black students are having a very challenging time understanding and knowing their worth. I have Black students who still in 2025 wish that they were white. I have Black students who hate their hair. I have Black students who feel so low in their esteem. And if you think it's because of the parents, you think again, because my daughter, who has the Blackest of mothers, even struggles at time with her identity, being a young Black girl with locks in a world that wants to constantly share all of these negative attributes about such a powerful group of people. Okay? If you have a Black child, I need you to love them and teach them on purpose. And this book is a valuable resource. If you cannot afford this book, I need you to sign up for our Pay It Forward program, where you can get this book for free. There is a wait list, but I am working my way through it as quickly as possible. And if you're able to go and donate money towards the Pay It Forward program so that people can get books, please do that. There's 2 different sides. There's, hey, my family really needs books. And there's, hey, I got some extra money and I want to make sure that they get books. So you can go check that out. Those are the 2 groups that I recommend the most. And if you're white and your child is Black, you still have a Black child. And families who are not Black, but have not intentionally created a bookshelf that highlights the beauties and joy of Black people. Okay, we're gonna move on. So my mascara don't run no more. Okay? All right. I still look cute. I hope so. Let's move on. I really loved how I took something that I experienced, because it is based on a real student, and made this story. So one of the glows is very personal. You wouldn't get that from just reading the book, but one of the glows is the fact that I took something that was really hard for me and I turned it into something magical. Another glow that I have is that the story does not anchor. It does not push in any response of hate. It is in no way tearing down Timothy. It's in no way tearing down white people. It's in no way tearing down anybody. Instead, it focuses and centers on Blackness, on Black creations, Black inventors, Black actors, Black scientists. That is the focus, and I love that, because too often our celebrations and our stories center on white or American history in a way that we get lost. I believe that this book did an excellent job keeping us at the forefront of the story. You're not going to pass a page without seeing something else we did. I have to give it to the illustrations, not because I'm the best illustrator in the world, but because the pictures alone will bring forward the message. And some of the books that I've been given to review, the critique is that the images are beautiful, but you have abstract art, or you have art that is open to interpretation, and you're trying to have a 3-year-old understand it. It doesn't work that way. And so what I appreciate about this book is that the images tell the story. The other thing that I loved about this book is that in the back of the book, you have additional people added to the story, and inventors and doctors and so many other just elements of Black history and creations. Lastly, I really appreciate all the research put into this book. There were so many people to be featured, so many things that we have done. And you can see that it was searched with the U.S. Patent, Office, and like none of this was made up. Obviously, the fairy is made up, maybe, like who knows? But I think the fairy is made up, and that's pretty much it. Timothy is real. The other people in the story are real. And the research that went into it made it that much more special, because it, even for me as a person who loves Black history, who has studied this on a collegiate level, I still learn so much about what we've done. And I'm still learning every single day. Now, my grows, or the things that I think could have been better. I think I have two. One is, a lot of people open the first page to my book. The first page throws some people off, especially if you're struggling with white fragility or sensitivity. Like if you have a nervousness when it comes to talking about race, when it comes to showing Black people, if that makes you nervous, that first page is going to throw you off, okay? Now, I'm going to read you the first page because honestly, I understand why. So the very first page is a dedication, to which I dedicate this book to every student I've worked with. You are capable of greatness, and I truly believe in y'all. Okay, that is the first page. But then this is the first page that I'm referring to in terms of the throw off. Timothy walked into class angry. Mrs. Burrell looked at Timothy and asked, "Timothy, why are you upset?" "Latifah took too long and I didn't get to swing today. I hate Black people and wish they were never born." "Hate?" Mrs. Burrell looked at Timothy disappointed. "You do know I'm Black, right? Do you hate me, Timothy?" He responded, "Well, most Black people," he said under his breath. "Why do we need them anyway?" "Well, Timothy," Mrs. Burrell said, "I am glad you asked. Let's take a look at what life would be like without Black people." This spread is enough for people to close the book, put it down, and say, "Have a good day." If they were to keep reading and to challenge some of those emotions, what they would find is something extremely special, which is the story of Black celebration and Black joy. So what I wish I would have done, because that is such a sticking point, is not change it. I would not have changed the words. Let me be clear. What I would have done, though, is at the beginning of the book, I would have given a heads up. And that heads up essentially would have said, "Hey, parents and educators, this book is created based on a real story, based on a real incident." I would have made it clear that maybe the fairy is cute and made up, or the disappearing elements are, were made up, but that the base of what happened when Timothy walked into that room, that it was true. And the reason why that's important is because I've been told, yeah, well, it may be true, but, it's still a lot for children to process. Yes. And there's a caveat to that. When Timothy came on into my room from his recess, and he was genuinely upset, and he was flipping off at the mouth about Black people and racism and he can't stand us and all of these other things. Guess what? There were other Black students who were in that room. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just me trying to figure out how do I teach this child with love, care, and intention for the rest of the year? How do I handle and manage my emotions when I can't step out because I'm in the middle of teaching? What do I say? I have never in my career, this was the first time, experienced racism, sure. I've lived in Georgia, I've lived in Texas, I've lived in Arizona. We didn't have the racism. But from a student, this was a whole different experience. What do I do? How do I respond? This was the response. And if you say, well, those words are too harsh for a children's book, then you have to sit up here and question how those students felt when it wasn't a book, when it was their real life. When they were sitting in that class that their parents had sent them to get an education, to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel wanted, when it was my responsibility to make sure that they were good, and a student, a peer that they had spent months next to, building and learning and studying, walked into the class and was so angry at one kid for a basketball game, and the story is a swing, but in real life it was a basketball game, that you decided to turn against all Black people. How do you think those students felt? How uncomfortable do you think those students were? So the books that I create, they're filled with so much passion because they are based on my experience educating your children, educating our children. And I'm never afraid to say when I don't know something, I didn't know what to do. I was flabbergasted, okay? I was completely thrown off in terms of how do I respond to this situation? What do I do? And in that moment, I responded by saying, do you hate me? That's why it's in the book. Well, do you hate me? And he said, well, not you, you cool. So I was the exception. The rule is that Black people were worthless, useless, blah, blah, blah. But not Mrs. Burrell. She the exception. She cool. Not listening to rap music. That's the exception. It's cool. Not doing the trending dances. That's the exception. They cool. Not eating the food. That's the exception. They cool. It's too many exceptions. You either take Black people with the culture, the inventions, the history, the love, the joy, the celebration, or you leave us alone. There's no exceptions. And this book for your babies is to tell them that there are no exceptions. Don't do that. Don't be that way. Don't take from somebody. Don't take from a group of people and then discard the people. That's wrong. That is wrong. And if any kid comes into my classroom, my prayer and my hope is that they will leave that classroom understanding that every culture and community has great value, even when it's not displayed that way. That would be my area of growth. Discussion points to have with your child. This portion of the behind the book for this segment really depends on why you picked the story up. If your child is Black and you pick this story up, I would have a conversation around what they love about themselves. What do they admire about their people? What stood out in terms of the book? Is there anything new that you've learned from the story? I would really center it on the creations and celebrations of Blackness, and a bonus if you can pull on how that also reflects onto them. So I have Black students that maybe some of them, their talent is art and they're artistic. Maybe some of them, their talent is athleticism. Maybe some of them, their talent is organizing. Whatever that talent is, I would draw it into this book. You know, you could definitely be in this book because of how well you organize things and how much you help me to keep my space together. I'd be so lost without you. I would hate to go a day without having your help and your assistance and your guidance. Bring them into the story. Bring who they are and their creations and their beauty into the fold. It makes a huge difference. And it shows them that what they're doing is seen and has impact. If your child is of a different ethnicity or race, if your child is anything other than Black, you can have the conversation around how do they feel about Black people? And I would start that conversation before you even open the book. What do you think? What do you think about that group of people? Do you have any like preconceived notions? And I wouldn't say that because that's not child friendly language, but I would say, is there any assumptions that you have when it comes to this group? Like, is there anything you really like, anything you really don't like? And I would have that discussion because you will hear generalized statements. That is how children think. They tend to think in general forms. It becomes an issue when it becomes a negative, and it becomes another issue when there's nothing to combat that. Okay, so start with that, see what happens, and then go from there. I've had students respond with, Black people like to play basketball, or I like this rapper or this artist. Or I've had like, sometimes they make me scared. I get really honest answers, and that's because I'm not coming in heavy with a hammer or a judgment. I want to know what it is you have to say, and this comes up a lot when I do school visits. Children will say these things about Black people, and then it opens up the conversation of, well, how did you get there? Now, it is important to understand, it is important for children to understand that Black people are not a monolith, that our experiences, the things that we love, how we speak, how we talk, how we look, it's not all one and the same. We have Black culture and we have things that connect us, but we are individual people and deserve to be seen that way. So open the conversation up with how they feel. Lead with yourself. Whenever you're having a discussion with your child, if you can start with yourself, you get it flowing so much. Now, if your baby is talkative like mine, you ain't got to start. You could just let them go. But a lot of times children have to feel comfortable conversing. They have to feel like, okay, my educator is, good with me talking right now. Mama is in a place where she can hear me, grandpa, whoever else. And so open the dialogue, lead the discussion. That can be you saying, in high school, there was a rock band club, and I thought they were the scariest people. Like the way that they had like their hair and their makeup, I was really uncomfortable around them, and I wasn't sure why. But then one day during track and field and track practice, somebody who was in the rock club joined the practice, and they were really great. And I found out, actually, the way that a person wears their hair and their makeup is not a good way to determine whether or not they're a good person or whether or not that group of people are good people. So lead with the time that you made an assumption. Be vulnerable, be honest, because then you will get responses. Then you will have children open up with what they believe and what they think, and then you can go from there. For both groups, I would love for you to have a discussion around what part of this book is racism, meaning the hate towards a group of people, in this case, Black people, and what part of the book is Black joy and celebration. What part of the book highlights Black culture and what things are Black culture, and what part of the book feels like it was against that group of people. That is my take home goal for this book, because we categorize so much of celebrating Blackness and Black joy inside of slavery, pain, and trauma. And so use this book as a resource, okay, to start separating out those different words and their meaning. Wow, that was a mouthful. We got some emotions going, a lot of truth, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. At the very least, I hope that you learned something new. If you're interested in getting the story, you can check out the link in my description box below. And if you have not heard the story yet, take a minute and go check out this week's Read Out Loud, What Would the World Be Without Black People? And An American Slave by Kwame Alexander, both talking about Black history and culture, as well as racism and slavery, and of course, why they are not the same thing. If you need more support on this topic, the last episode for this topic will be the Teacher Lady Speaks episode, which on Friday, okay, every Friday is Teacher Lady Speaks, where we will go into a whole lesson plan on how to bring this into your classroom or into your home to have more well-rounded, loving, and joyful babies. Lastly, as a long-time reading specialist and literacy advocate, I asked you to go check out my Pay It Forward initiative, where it's super simple. You donate a book and then it gets given to a child that needs it. No red tape, just impact. So take a moment and go check that out, as well as all of my other books. Thank you so much for watching and for growing with me and being part of this beautiful book-loving community. I'll see you next time on Behind the Book with the Teacher Lady, where honest reviews spark deeper, more meaningful reading. Until next time, enjoy the moment or go be a joy in the moment.